Hi, I'm Diego, pronouns he, him, and I am Laertes and the first player. I think like for me, when I was like in the fourth grade, I was like, I want to do theater for some reason. I was like, I want to do this. I like heard like to be or not to be. I was like, yeah, that's lit. And like, I remember like being like the library in fourth grade, and like the assistant teacher would like, hey, like look at these like Shakespeare books if you want to do like theater stuff, because like there's no like theater stuff like when you're in elementary school. And like it was like a Midsummer Night's Dream like picture book, and like some like historical fiction like The Shakespeare Thief by like Gary Blackwood, I want to say. And I was like this is like dope. I'm like reading through this. And I'm like that's what got me like kickstart to then go like on middle school where like we actually start reading like Romeo and Juliet and Midsummer and all these things. And like it's just like really good like English teachers that were like, hey, like look at Othello. Like this is like kind of like crazy like what is going on, and it's like, still applicable today. And so I think like for me it was all of that, and then like going on with like acting training, it's like it's so connected, you can't separate them. It's like you're doing your ballet like drills or like your like scales, like it's so interwoven, and it's just like you can't escape it. Like I'm watching TV now and I'm like you can't escape it. I watched The Penguin, I'm like oh that's just Richard III, or I'm watching like Succession, I'm like oh that's just King Lear, and I'm like that's just like these things keep repeating for a reason. I think for me, Othello. I want to say Othello because that was the one, like, I was like in sophomore year of high school, and like my favorite English teacher was like, this is my favorite play, and it should be your favorite play too. And I think just for me, like, it's so crazy the story it would be for its time. And that's still like really important today of like, it's a story of racism. And like, that's crazy to think about, like, oh, like that during like 15, like 90, whatever it was when it was written, that's a crazy thing to be talking about and opening up. But the arguments it makes about just how like crappy people can be and like selfish, and like I think because of that, like it's just so relevant today. I wish it get done more. I want audiences to be super optimistic and super hyped up. I want this to be like, I want this to feel like a comedy and like a refreshing, like exciting experience. Because I think like I want people to feel the way this play would have felt when you first watched it for the first time at like whatever 1590 something. Because I think like you're going into like you're not expecting the tragedy of the Prince of Denmark. You're just watching these things play out, and it's just that roller coaster ride. Where like oh I'm strapped in, and I was having a good time, and not like what I liked or like having horrible things happen to them. When I saw that this was like something like collaborative and like a little bit immersive and interactive, I'm like, that's my bread and jam. I just graduated from Texas State, and like a really big focus over there was like, for me, it was like devising and like being a gamer, and like it's what we call like being a gamer. It's like just like being down to play and down to collaborate, and like graduating, I was like, I wanted to look for something like that, and I love this play. And like seeing all these things together, I'm like, oh my god, this is such a great opportunity. This is what I've been looking for and hoping for. Because like if this didn't come along, I was gonna probably like take like a couple of years and try to do something like this. So I was like, oh, this saves me the trouble. Um, but I think the biggest thing I've been learning again, it's just like I've never done this with people I don't know, which is something new because I've always been in an academic setting when I'm doing these kind of things, and it's so nice and refreshing. Like, oh no, like people with much more experience out in the field that have been doing and studying things that know much more than me are also like wanting to do these new fresh ideas. It's not like we have to do it from the ground up, the young generation. It's like it's from all different angles, and I think having that perspective really makes me like sit back and like want to listen, still be a student, and continue to be a student and teacher interwoven. I think for me the biggest thing is like the education aspect of it all and the accessibility. I think for me like my brother's a teacher, and I've had a lot of really good teachers like growing up in life, and I think like creating Shakespeare and theater that's exciting for young audiences is how we keep it alive. I think in like my last year of like undergrad, I was looking at things and I was like, oh, like there's all these like things about like AI and this and these industries and all these things that are happening. And I think the reason why I'm so drawn to like experiences like this and like the Walking Shadow like mission is that like that's what keeps theater exciting. It's like we have to teach them like, no, it's not just this boring thing that your mom would drag you to do on the weekend and you have to like dress all nice. It's like it's young, it's fresh, it's exciting, and it's worth doing, and you learn a lot, and it's something about the human experience that you can't get from anything else. because it's the greatest Shakespeare play ever written. I mean, you can say that, but like, why come see this show specifically? And I think it's because I remember I did a study abroad in London, and we went to go see this play called The Motive in the Queue, and that play ends with this sort of like really dramatic. It's about a really famous production of Shakespeare of Hamlet, and that production ends with like this play has been done like however thousand hundreds of times. So there have been like whatever the years since there's been like I forget it was a huge like 400,000 like Hamlets, and I'm like that's crazy that like this play has been done like thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And I think it's because every time I read it, every time I do it, and like study it, I'm like, you realize something more, and you learn something more, and there's a reason, and it's still really connected to what we're talking about, depending on what angle you look at it. Like if you look at it from like Chekhov realism angle, it's like this is saying something about like the state of society then, or like looking at it now, like from like a mental illness angle, like Hamlet's depressed and he needs help, or there's the angle of like Ophelia's agency and all these different things. I think it's because this text is so layered that there's always something to find, and it always merits a revisit.